there's going to be a new coach for the Indiana Fever. Chad, you and I recognize the name very well. Stephanie White is the new coach for the Indiana Fever, also a former coach of the Indiana Fever. She's also a former coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores women's basketball team that absolutely sucked.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, it was an awful tenure for Stephanie White here in Nashville coaching college hoops. But, I mean, she's known for coaching the WNBA. And you brought this up earlier today, Chad, about what you remember about her final season in college basketball.
Well, so it's funny because I've heard things about her from people that were close to Vanderbilt athletics.
Yeah.
That I can't really verify enough to talk about right now that was going on within the program.
It's like one source, not two kind of thing.
It's one of those things, Hutton, where there are times where we have to check the public record.
Yes.
Right on things, because we tend to get info and conversations from people that I'm like, does everyone know about that, or do I just know about that?
Yeah.
This was one of those things. So I checked the public record. Stephanie White, first off, at Vanderbilt, was 46-83 overall. She was 14-58 in the SEC. I mean, that's difficult.
I mean, that takes, you have to try to do that.
If I could get this out of my lungs, I'll be a lot better. That's difficult. I'm choking over here like Aaron Judge. Very difficult to accomplish that level of futility, right?
Yes.
Anywhere. She was awful at Vanderbilt. But Hutton, 2020, 2021 season, with all the COVID restrictions and everything else, she just discontinued a season in January. And I totally forgot about that. I just searched Stephanie White controversy, and the first thing that popped up was
evaporated.
The Vanderbilt players got together and voted to not play anymore after losing by 52 points to South Carolina that year. And they just, all right, guys, our safety is in doubt. They did have a player who had myocarditis from COVID-19 that was out. They had 2 players sick that was quarantined at different times. They had other legitimate injuries on the team.
And they're on a campus that was private and had other restrictions.
And they could do whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
So they were down to 7 of their 14 scholarship players that were on the team, and they just decided, all right,
and we'll call
it a season.
They tapped out like
good news for Vanderbilt. No one asked for a refund for season tickets because no one had any. Because at this point of Stephanie White's tenure, no one went to Vanderbilt women's basketball games, and I mean that. I don't know that anybody paid to go to one of those games. I think it was all like, give the young girls basketball team tickets to go watch college basketball.
A field day.
Yeah. It was real bad. But she's been pretty good in the WNBA.
Well, think about the upgrade that Stephanie White has now. She was with, the Connecticut Sun. Mm-hmm. I brought this up earlier in the season discussing, just how bad it was in the WNBA compared to how great it is that Caitlin Clark's in the league. The Mohegan Sun owns that team. They've got this, rec center where they practice, the Connecticut Sun, and they get kicked off the court in this recreation center anytime there's a Pilates class, because it's a membership recreation center, and they sometimes have to end their practice early. Stephanie White's head coach, going from that to now the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark, the face of women's basketball. You get to coach Caitlin Clark. I mean, that's exactly what you want.
And you would think
the clamoring to coach her would be, like wanting Phil Jackson's job.
Well, and you would think that this would be this is going to be the premier organization for the WNBA for years to come.
Yes.
And they're going to do things first class, unlike in Connecticut.
I would think so.
I'm trying to see what was Stephanie White doing this year, because she didn't coach this year.
I don't know. Great question.
Her coaching record overall is 59-41 through 100 games as a head coach in the WNBA. She coached the Indiana Fever 2015-2016, went to Vanderbilt, got back into coaching in 2023, won WNBA Coach of the Year with the Connecticut Sun.
Well, you know what this is? So they just rehired their former president there, too. So they're just going back to what the people in the organization that they had. Is what it feels like, right? Or what it is now. They brought back the woman who had been the team president for 17 seasons or something. You and I were surprised the Indiana Fever had been around that long.
She was with Connecticut Sun this year, too.
Okay.
I double-checked that. Coaching, that is going to shock you. Basketball coaching reference, which I go to, stat reference,
Nice.
not caught up on the latest WNBA records for their coaches. So they just have a blank spot for 2024.
Fill in the blank.
They got to get someone to input those numbers for her. So even the record I told you is off because
Also,
it does not factor in this year's record for
Just
them.
one more random thought.
So basically disregard about half of what I just said.
How about the two coaches coaching, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, both getting fired after the rookie season?
The Indiana Fever one's a surprise because
and Angel Reese didn't want her coach fired.
Yeah, but they were bad. I mean, two teams don't make the playoffs?
4, I think.
4. She was one of the 4. The Chicago Sky was, so I understand them not making it. But to go from number 1 pick for Indiana to playoffs, as Jim Mora would say in Indianapolis, playoffs, that's not bad. I was surprised she was fired.
From the WNBA to the NBA, and Mark Cuban spouting off on The View, discussing how there's no strong women around President Trump. There's a reason for that. Well, Riley Gaines, who's been like a world tour, she's back, and she's back letting everyone know that Mark Cuban needs to, check out the strong women around President Trump.
All right, let's just unpack this really quick. Just in the past week alone, Trump supporters have been called Nazis by virtually every media outlet. We have been called garbage by the sitting United States president. And now Mark Cuban has come out and said there is no such thing as a strong, intelligent female supporter of Donald Trump because they don't exist. Respectfully, Mark Cuban, you would not know a strong, intelligent female if she slapped you across the face, which you're such a beta, you might actually kind of like that. So if you are a healthcare provider, if you are a school teacher, if you are a U.S. military member and you are a woman and a Trump supporter, then to Mark Cuban, you are stupid and weak. If this woman right here, Tulsi Gabbard, a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, if this is not a strong, intelligent woman, then what is? Actually, I already know Mark Cuban's answer. This is who Mark Cuban believes to be a strong, intelligent woman. Although we really shouldn't be too surprised that a comment like this would come out of Mark Cuban's mouth, considering that he says border czar Harris has done a good job at the southern border, which maybe we just have different ideas of what constitutes as a good job. But to me, the illegal entrance of 13,000 murderers, 16,000 rapists, and the 320,000 missing children certainly doesn't fit the bill. It doesn't seem like continually disparaging more than half the country less than a week before Election Day is an effective strategy to get your candidate elected. But what do I know? I'm just a stupid, weak woman.
Well, she's not. She just owned the entire conversation over Mark Cuban there.
Yeah, that was very good by Riley. Sage Steele also had something good they said about it as well. Mark Cuban has tried to clarify.
What's up with all the clarifications of comments instead of just saying what you mean and mean what you say recently?
This is going to sound crazy. I'm going to cut Mark Cuban a little bit of slack here.
Okay.
Because he didn't say every Donald Trump female supporter isn't strong or intelligent. His exact quote, and he took it, and he's got the exact quote. He said, let me clarify something. This is what I said during the conversation about why Nikki Haley is not active in the campaign for Trump.
Okay.
Quote, Donald Trump, you never see him around strong, intelligent women ever. It's that simple. They're intimidating to him. He doesn't like to be challenged by them. And Nikki Haley will call him on his nonsense with reproductive rights and how he sees and treats and talks about women. I mean, he just can't have her around. It wouldn't work. And then he says, I'm happy to clarify this. One, I know many strong, intelligent women voting for Trump, including in my extended family. I'm certainly not saying female voters are not smart, strong, and intelligent. Two, I know he has worked with strong, intelligent women, Elaine Chao, Kellyanne, Ivanka, many others. But I stand by my opinion that he does not like being challenged publicly by women or anyone else. That from Mark Cuban.
Well,
so I think a pretty important clarification.
I also
think
Riley's not going to have to clarify her comments.
No, not at all. And I also think yet another unforced error by people around Kamala Harris. This is just not the news that you want now, right before the election, and for no reason. Then Mark Cuban said something that's got everybody talking on The View.
So mentioning unforced errors, the NFL has clearly thought about this. They are not going to fine Nick Bosa until next week, the end of next week. That's the report. So the only report out is that he's not going to be suspended, which again, he's facing discipline. It's like an $11,300 fine for the MAGA hat, right? Normally that fine would come down today on the locker, but the report is that they're not going to rule on this until next week. Why? Well, they don't want to be a storyline going into Tuesday. Yeah. So they've clearly made up their mind that they're not going to do anything like that for a political message one way or the other until next week when the election, we hope, is decided by next Friday.
And I really can't blame them on this one.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back to what I've said before. I think
He's going to be fine.
All reasonable people just want this. Just the same rule applied to all statements like this.
Yeah.
Well, just not one side, getting fined and not.
Well,
it's either everyone or no one.
Well, but it is. Just ask George Pickens. It wasn't a political statement. But
right. I'm talking more about politics. If you endorse anything, then everyone gets the fine. That's what I'm saying.
Well, and it is nonpartisan. He will be fined, but they're not going to do the political fine right before
they're not
Sunday
trying
before the
to
election.
help one side or the other right before the election.
I would tend to think so.